Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode number 40, with Donna Moritz from Socially Sorted.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
Hey, it's Adam Franklin from the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Again, on my own. Toby's got big things happening in his life, and I'm sure he will fill us in next time he's on the show. But you have arrived at the show for people who love marketing on the web. You'll be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments, where we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and reveal the truth about what really works. The show is brought to you by our new book, which is also called Web Marketing That Works, and it's brought to you specifically by the bonus 33 free marketing templates that go with it. So if you're keen to get your hands on those templates for free, head over to bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now, the guest for today's show is Donna Moritz, and as you'll discover throughout the interview, she is very talented and very proficient and recognized as a visual content marketer. And I first discovered Donna, I was really late to the party actually, because I wish I'd discovered her much, much earlier than I did, but she was one of the fellow finalists for the Australian Writers' Centre Best Business Blog, and Donna's blog, Socially Sorted, actually went on to take out the prize of being Australia's best business blog. So it was a real pleasure to get her on the show, and let's get underway. Hi there, it's Adam Franklin from the Web Marketing That Works podcast, and I'm very excited to be joined by Donna Moritz. How are you, Donna?
I'm great. Thanks, Adam. It's nice to finally talk to you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Donna is the Australia's Best Business Blog owner. She won her blog, Socially Sorted, was the winner of the Best Business Blog as judged by the Australian Writers' Centre. And I've been wanting to interview Donna ever since I saw her win that prize. And just running through Donna's rap sheet, it's very impressive. She writes for many of the world's best blogs. She's been featured on Forbes and Yahoo and NBC, Michael Hyatt's blog, Amy Porterfield's blog, and she's known for her awesome infographics and visuals. So there's a lot that I really want to talk with Donna about today. But Donna, that's only a very short overview. There's other things like you've spoken at some really cool events overseas as well, Social Media Marketing World and locally at the Pro Blogger event coming up this year. Now that's a short overview. Can you fill in a few gaps for me and tell our listeners what really gets you excited?
Sure. It's interesting you mentioned Pro Blogger because I started my blog. Actually, I have to say this first, Adam. You were one of the finalists in that blog competition, and I thought you were a shoo-in to win it. So I was pretty surprised but excited. So I was in good company. I don't know if everyone realises that, but they need to know that. So I had to throw that in.
Oh, thanks, Donna, and congratulations for winning it there.
We should have, we really should have had drinks. But anyway, so I was at Pro Blogger a couple of years ago, and I had a social media agency just really helping small businesses mainly get set up and engage and drive traffic to their websites and blogging and all sorts of things. But it was a little bit general, and I'd been blogging for a while and was starting to do okay, and had done a guest post for Amy Porterfield, and being a guest post that I valued, we put an infographic in it and it did really well. And so I'd started to become interested about visuals, and then we went down to Pro Blogger in Melbourne, and Darren Rouse took the stage and gave an amazing keynote. And actually, if you look up World Domination Summit and Darren Rouse, you'll see a similar keynote that he gave last year, covered similar content. But he was talking about how you should look for the sparks and then sort of fan the flames and follow them. And so I went away and thought, you know what, I've always been a creative person. I was writing a lot more about visuals and infographics and visual content, and people were really responding well to those posts. They were getting shared more and a lot more comments, and so I started to really focus on it more. And I think I did a survey and asked people when they were really keen, and that's how I kind of got more into the visual side. And so then I just decided to pivot my blog. And so now it's about visual social media and content strategy. And there's a lot of gaps in between that story, but it was basically just taking a step back and looking at what people were wanting. And since then, visual content has become huge. People are, all the platforms are visual, and all the social platforms are becoming more visual, and it's just become really, really fun content to write about because everybody's interested in it.
Well, I really like how you've niched so deep, because web marketing, social media, it's so broad, and there's so many different areas that you can write about, and obviously you did, but drilling down into that visual niche is really cool, and a very smart move, I think, with Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook and everything. Obviously, so focused on visuals, it's really good.
And I think, and you're right, and it's funny because with visuals, there's the obvious platforms like Pinterest and Instagram, which are very visual, and Facebook is, but now LinkedIn owns SlideShare, and so you can put videos and slides and visual content on your LinkedIn profile. Twitter is very visual too, like twice as many retweets for images is the stat that's being thrown around. And then there's YouTube. I mean, I think I was talking at a conference last week. There's 6 billion videos viewed monthly, and there's only 7 billion people in the world. So that's
a lot of YouTube watching.
It's insane. We're very sad society, I think. But I think generally it's just become, it's something that everyone's interested in, and everyone's just so busy, and it's hard to catch their attention now, and we process images so much quicker. It's like 13 milliseconds or something. So you can quickly get an emotional connection with someone and have them take action on a piece of content versus, a podcast or a video is really fabulous for when you've got a relationship already and then they're invested in listening to it, and you can multitask with a podcast. But just for that, catching their attention and the snackable kind of content, images are awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than wading through a whole bunch of text to get the point across. And I've got to thank you for putting me onto the app WordSwag. That's brilliant. I was reading
down the rabbit hole.
I was reading your wrap-up report, I think from the social media marketing world. Yeah. And I downloaded the WordSwag app. It's only $2.99, but it's really cool because you can take photos and you can overlay your message or your text, and there's backgrounds that they give you, and there's photographs. You can use your own photographs and put your own words over it, but it's just absolutely brilliant. Hey, really easy to create visual content. I love that tip. Thanks.
Yeah, it's all right, and it makes you look like a designer because the typography in it is pretty cool. Like there's so many different ones you can choose from. I have an interesting story about that actually, because I wish I could find the blog that I found it on. It was a smaller blogger somewhere that had said, "Oh, this is a cool app," and I was using it before social media marketing world. And just a little story. We went for lunch with Josh from Post Planner and Kim Gast, who's a Forbes social media influencer, and Emmerich from Agora Pulse, and Ian Cleary and a couple of other people. And I pulled it out at lunchtime the day before the conference started, and I had to just about physically gag Kim Gast from saying anything for 2 days. She was so excited. I said, "Can you keep it quiet just for a day? I'd like to show it in my session." So then it was funny because all these major influencers and people that owned massive social media tools were doing all these images. They were creating quotes throughout the first day, but they wouldn't say where it was from. So they were so loyal. I was quite impressed, but they held out until the end of my session, and then they're all like just talking about it like crazy. And since then, it's gone nuts. But I thought it was funny that I managed to keep them quiet because they didn't have to.
Yeah. No, I was blown away because all the quotes from the speakers throughout the day. I was reading through the post, going, "Wow, they look amazing."
Yeah, all these designers at the conference.
Exactly, all these designers that you got working in real time sitting next to you.
Yeah, well, I was sitting next to Zach from Canva, and he was creating on Canva, and I was using WordSwag. But it was like a design off. Like people were, it was quite funny, and it was funny watching the Twitter feed because people were saying, "What what are you using to make that? And they go, oh, you have to go to Donna's session tomorrow. So my session was packed.
That's a great time. It's a great form of marketing right in the lead up to your presentation.
Yeah, I'd like to think it was that they were there. I'd say about 10% were there just to find out what word swag was.
Well, that's a good hook.
Yeah, I'll take it. It's okay.
Now, Donna, how would you describe your web marketing philosophy?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm not very techie, so I'd have to go back to my marketing philosophy, which has come from we've got an offline business. My husband's a chiropractor. I've had a recruitment agency that I started with no money and no idea with my friend to send people over to the UK. So I've been in the trenches a bit, like having to market without money before or without necessarily having a platform. So I really, underlying what I do on the web is simple customer service, over deliver, be real and just respond to people and engage with them. And I guess just word of mouth, like even though you might be talking about the web and online and tech, I just think word of mouth is the biggest driver, has always been the biggest driver with me with any business. You know, we don't actually even we pulled all of our marketing in our offline business and just focused on our customers, and we're booked out all the time. Like I'm not involved in that business, but just to give you an example, I've pulled those concepts over with what I do online, and I think that's how, you know, even just getting offline and meeting people at conferences and things like that has been, and I'm sure you'll agree, as important as the SEO plugin that I've got on my WordPress site. So I think that's been really important, and also just being consistent with content underlies everything, and just really focusing on the content that I own, which is my website. I used to get very lost out over in social media world, and I realized that if I really focused on what I own and producing content on my website, things change very quickly, and they did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's interesting, because you're a non-techie, I'm a non-techie, and my business partner's a non-techie.
Oh, that's right.
yeah. So it just it goes to show that, you know, a lot of people get daunted, I think, by the fact that, you know, we're doing all this stuff on the web, and aside from having to learn all these social media platforms, there's this terrifying sort of fear that there's WordPress stuff to learn and coding, and you know, there are a few new things to learn. There's no doubt about that, but it's like learning to drive a car, right? You know, it's pretty daunting at the start, and as soon as you get behind the wheel, it's like, oh man, all these things to remember. But once you've done it for a week or two and you get some proper training, then it becomes second nature, and then you can really start to enjoy it.
Plug-in or whatever, and then just get some advice, or That's why I liked your book. I haven't read the whole thing, but I had a good read of it when you sent it to me, and it just the very practical advice. And if you strip everything back, it's the same principles we've used for years, you know. But I always call it the Walt effect. I've got a lot of roots in Walt Disney and what he, you know, that exceeding people's expectations, providing massive value. And I think if you create content that people are interested in and it helps them, then I think if you add in those tools, then that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that note, have there been any major aha moments in your journey so far, Donna?
Yes. I guess a couple of things. Like, one is that just to be consistent and just put yourself out there and not worry too much about getting things perfect. Mm-hmm. And also, like, there comes a point where you can stop learning. Like, I early on did some mentorship with people that they definitely weren't suited to me, and I spent a lot of money on courses and mentors that I didn't need to. You know, like you can get good mentors and good programs without spending a fortune. And sometimes it's just doing one thing consistently can just move forward. So for me, it was that blogging is just so powerful. Like, I was standing at soccer practice with Nikki Parkinson, who won Best Blog in Australia a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And I just remember she said to me, just because I had a little business, I was consulting with people. I was still, you know, doing a couple of things, other things as well. But she said, just start blogging and writing content that establishes you as an expert in, and even if it's just your ideas, you know, don't restrict yourself to local. I was very focused on, you know, the Sunshine Coast and Brisbane, but once I realized that there was a big global web out there, that was an aha moment. I was like, wow, like you can really reach a lot of people without needing to be in there, having them in your office.
Yeah, that's because I'm from Brisbane originally and living down in Sydney now. But one of the luxuries of our business has been once we started releasing and publishing our templates and blog content and ebooks and everything, all of a sudden, people from all around the world started downloading it. And prior to that, we had people pretty much based in Brisbane and some in Sydney from our personal networks and from people we had done business with. But now most of our people live outside of, our Brisbane and Sydney postcodes, and it really opens up a lot of opportunities, for creating products and even consulting via Skype, for people all over the world.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I do believe in good quality mentoring and good, like when you're at a certain level. But I think that there's so much you can do that's very low cost. Like even, I guess for me, in hindsight, if I had I was lucky. I had good advice about some of those lead magnets or the people the like you say, the templates and that people can download, and then they get on your list, and then you can develop a relationship with them. I was given that advice reasonably early, but I didn't probably take it and use it as early as I should. So some of those, it's just a great opportunity for people now to be able to reach lots of people with very little outlay. To be able to provide those products that people can download or buy or consult with you online. It's not a huge cost. You don't have to have a massive office and a big advertising budget.
Yeah, totally. And I think on your point too, how you can learn from so many people without having to fork out heaps of money. Yeah. It's, most people give away like 98% of their stuff through their blog and through podcasts and through everything else, that you can learn tons and tons through that. And that's
where you find the right person, because the right person will be the one that's giving you such great free content that that they are going to be awesome on the other side if you do anything with them. And that's been always correct with me, versus the one that, the people that say that they're so wonderful, but you don't really know.
until you pay them,
Yeah, and then you find out. But, and it's all learning. But I think, there's a lot of, and they say, most content we can go and create ourselves. All the information's on the web, but people want the cheat sheet and the easy option and it all wrapped up nicely. So that's why Darren Rowse could sell 31 Days to a Better Blog when actually it was an ebook that was all blog posts from his website.
Yeah, right.
And he's quite open about that. And everyone said, no, fine, we'll still buy it.
And I think people, it's that packaging. I mean, it's not the information that they're selling. It's that convenience, or it's that transformation, isn't it? That if you actually go through and implement this stuff, and I've made it easy for you and put it all in this ebook, and you follow through with it, then it's worth the $20 or $30 that, for example, Darren charges for that ebook.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Okay, well, part 2 of this podcast, Donna, is where we look at the marketing experiments that you've done. And I really like to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the good. What have you tried that has worked really well, and can you dive into some specifics for us?
Yeah, sure. I guess consistent blogging and building relationships with other people that are that have a similar audience, so that I'm not necessarily, like, I guest posted early on. Yep. And so I did that more just because I was excited to be asked to guest post on a couple of sites. And I also reached out to someone when they asked I think my first post on Social Fresh was just an intern posting very late at night saying, is there any Australians that want to contribute?
Yep.
And I volunteered that I would interview someone I knew, and I did that. So as far as marketing experiences with guest posting and blogging, I think that has worked really well. Like, that has driven my my business from the very start. In providing, my experiment was that if I provide my absolute best content to websites that already have an audience, then people will also gravitate towards my audience. And it wasn't necessarily as targeted as that. It was more just a try and see kind of approach. But I had been advised that guest posting is a great way to go, and that has honestly worked really well for me, to the point that now I just write for a couple of major sites and any that I have time, but I don't really get to do any extras, and it's nice. I don't have to sort of approach websites anymore, because writing for Social Media Examiner and Entrepreneur kind of consistently is a fairly big undertaking in itself, and plus then trying to put content on my own website. So I'd say that the guest posting and putting great content out on other sites, and then also being really ready to engage and follow up. Like I've spent days early on, I would respond to just about every tweet, just because I knew that if I put in the hard work then it would pay off now, and it has. But so there was the guest posting and the content, and then also graphics. That was an experiment for me when Amy said, let's do a guest post on Pinterest. I wrote a post that was pretty much like, when we looked at it before it went live, we went, wow, this is like an ebook. It's kind of a mini guide. I think Amy's called it epic. She said it'll be interesting to see how this goes because it's bigger than any post she'd had because it was quite detailed. But then we put the infographic in the middle of it, which was like a summary of the post, and it was nothing fancy. It was just like a, bright, colourful infographic with a summary. Yep. And it went gangbusters because the image became a gateway to the post, because it was shared on Pinterest like thousands of times, and then people were finding her post. They still come there all the time. Like it's still a high traffic post. I just updated the content. Would probably update the infographic, but that was a big experiment for me too, and that worked really well. So that then paved the way for Entrepreneur asking me to do more infographics, and I do one for them occasionally, but they're very gracious and let me put it on my site first.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, very, very lucky. They don't have to do that. And yeah, just since then, everything has been about great content and embedding visual content within that, so that it's, it's almost like a gateway from my platform back to your website, from your website over to Pinterest. I just find images have been really successful like that. So they're the two things probably that were kind of experiments, but they worked well.
That is awesome, because there's two really great lessons there. And particularly, so the first one was guest blogging for other people, because I've certainly found in the early days particularly that getting traction on your blog is just so difficult and so disheartening that when I realized finally, I think I saw something that Jeff Bullis had done. He'd syndicated his content with business to community, and then I did the same. And, all of a sudden I was getting tweets and comments and everything on my blog posts, and it was the validation that I needed, that my writing's actually good enough to get comments and shares, but I just needed more eyeballs on my content. And, what sort of ratio would you have said that you were writing for your own blog versus for other people's blogs in those early days, Donna?
Oh, probably about the same. Look, I was shocking at consistency with my blog. I was probably doing maybe 4 blog posts on mine to every guest post. Once I realized that guest posting was useful. But then I kind of went through a few little ones, like people were asking me to write a guest post here and there. And I was very fortunate that I actually write for a Spanish blog.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, social media. Actually, they used to be called Social Media Blog. They're now called Social Answer. And they're one of the biggest blogs in Europe. And they just discovered me once. I've been pretty fortunate because I haven't had to sort of do outreach to say, can I write for you very often? But they approached me and wanted to translate my posts. So the first one I had on their site was English and Spanish. There's 2 versions. And then now they just translate. They just say, we want to do this one. Yeah, sure. I basically said you can use any of them. They translate them and they're in Spanish. So so I had that going on consistently as well, which I didn't have to write anything extra. But then there were others like Social Fresh, Social Media Examiner came on later. Social Entrepreneur would just ask me occasionally, are you ready to do another one? Or else if I had I've done a couple of interesting posts like for Canva and Canva's when they put on Guy Kawasaki when they included him in their team. I did an article on Curelate. So I've kind of moved from just infographics to doing articles for them occasionally, but it tends to be sort of news or tech kind of news or social media news. And just some smaller ones. Like I've found that some of the startups are a great place to go because they're looking for content that's related to social media and marketing. So I've had a lot of success, writing posts for blogs like Canva and, just some of those, or Nimble is another tool. All of those sorts of guys are often looking for posts as well. So, and they're often very easy to work with. So yeah, there's a few different, but it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't planned. I didn't go, I need to do this many blog posts, and I could have done a lot more guest posts, to be honest. But, used to watch, Leo from Buffer Remember?
Yeah, absolutely.
He was everywhere.
Yep.
And I know that Amy Porterfield did that early on too, and she said that it burns you out after a while. So I just kind of hoped and prayed that if I did a few quality ones, it would work. And I was pretty lucky. I think I found the minimum effective dose.
But it's such a good story because I was so inspired by Leo, and
yes.
And he did about 150 for the listeners who aren't familiar with Leo from Buffer. He did about 150 guest blog posts in the space of, I think, 9 months. And
wow.
his business was very young at the time. And I mean, everyone, not everybody, but Buffer's a very popular social media scheduling tool that we're very familiar with now. But to get him and get his company on the map, he was doing, I think he started off at one guest blog post a week or a fortnight.
Yeah.
And then as he got better, he was, cranking out, I think at one point, 3 or 4 guest blog posts a day because he was so good at it. But when he was on, all the major blogs and tons of, not even the major blogs, like smaller ones, but he was just everywhere. And now, the domain authority on his website for the, I guess, more the SEO geeks, it's 93 out of 100, which is huge. Like Seth Godin's blog has a domain authority of 93, and he blogs every single day, and he's an absolute, guru in the industry. Yeah. Leo's been able to achieve a similar sort of result.
Wow, that's amazing.
But staggering, absolutely staggering. And
they've kept up that quality. Like they then did a lot of really detailed blog posts on the Buffer side as well. And since then they've had 2 writers that have done stellar posts as well. So I just, that's how I discovered Buffer. I'm like, who's this Buffer fellow? He was on Social Media Examiner early on.
Yeah, I follow, and the writers, Belle and Kevin.
Belle,
these days are writing fantastic posts, and I really try and model what we do with our blog on those. And there's a lot more work ahead, but doing just from my own personal standpoint, doing all the guest blogging is something.
Well, that makes sense. Now I can see what's going on. No, it's good. I mean, you can't do. Yeah, Leo is a very smart man. Oh, thank goodness he now gets to sit back and just run his company and not with Joel instead of writing all the time.
Yeah. But it just goes to show if you do the work, there's no real secret. Like everyone's sort of heard that guest blogging is good, but to hear what's involved and how that can actually put you on the map. Like you've obviously done these guest blog posts, and you've got a very good and high profile in the blogging world. So
and it's not that like people get very daunted by it. And just to give people some hope, like I didn't. You need to be careful about how you approach a blog. Like don't just sort of spam them, cold call. Like I would follow them, comment on their blog posts, contribute for a bit, and then maybe find out the person to contact. But for me, I always held Social Media Examiner in high esteem because there was just one of the first blogs that I followed, and same with Michael Hyatt actually. But and I always put them in the pocket of I won't write for them for a very long time. I actually even said to Cindy that I was practicing on another, I won't say what website it is.
Yep.
I was practicing on another very large website, probably with more traffic than them, Cindy King, their editor. And, often those blogs are very encouraging for you to actually just to submit something. But you need to, if you're going for the bigger ones, and you need to have some established blogs. And even if you work in the health field or, coaching or whatever field you're in, try to approach blogs that may be on a similar level to you or maybe a little bit above that would be looking for content that aren't like the really top ranking blogs, and then use that to leverage to approach another one. That's what I'd recommend to do. And just make relationships with people outside, go to conferences, things like that. You often meet other people with websites, with blogs that you can approach for guest blogging.
That's cool. And I often find that often much less daunting once you've met somebody in person. You realise, they're just a human being too, even though their online presence might be like really intimidating.
Yes. Yeah.
The other point I just wanted to reiterate from your answer earlier was the fact that putting infographics into blog posts is can have incredible results. And just from my own personal experience, we just did a LinkedIn infographic based on our on one of our planning templates, and it went gangbusters. Yeah. And we were just shocked. And that was even without any marketing. And then we went through and marketed the infographic, and HubSpot republished it. And I was just staggered because there was that many backlinks and pins on Pinterest and shares. We were blown away. So,
HubSpot are good. Once you get, I've had a couple go into HubSpot, and they, it can be some great traffic. But it's I saw that. It's a good infographic, and it's very smart. And I think I wrote a post a couple of weeks ago about how people, like, infographics are wonderful, and some people say, infographics are a pain and I'm sick of them and whatever else. But I think the problem with infographics is they came out, they were really popular, and people tended to make them about, data. They took all this data and then they made it look pretty. And then you're going through Pinterest or websites or whatever, and you think, oh, that looks nice, I'll save that. But you don't really use it because it's actually just data. It's like, lots of stats. And I learned very early on, in fact, I stumbled across it with Amy's, that wasn't really a traditional infographic that we did. It was just a really pretty way of summarizing the blog post. We pulled out the key points. We had nice little images for each section. We sectioned it off and put it in the middle of the blog, and it was helpful. And I think if you can make your blog post your infographic helpful, like your LinkedIn one is just a real cheat sheet of how to use LinkedIn effectively. It's not full of stats. I mean, I like to include a reference or a stat or some sort of quote in most of mine, sometimes that can be a great way to get someone else to share it too, if you put someone who's influential in your industry. Yep. or a tool or some other company, you mention them. But if you make it helpful, then people will not only pin it to their infographic board, they'll bookmark it, and they'll keep a copy of it handy. I was talking last week about some great infographics, and there's one that Queensland Tourism did. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the bucket list, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And they've been really smart. It's sort of in sections. It's really bright and fun. And it's just, if you're coming to Queensland, what can you do? And so there's like the top things to do in Queensland. They've listed them. And then there's like a little section on what's your favorite type of travel. And then there's a section on how many in your party. And then it just sort of gives people advice for what to do in Queensland. It's not boring stats. It's actually helpful. And then there's another one, the Outrigger Hotel in, Hawaii, did 4 different infographics that were just about each beach area and what you can do and how you get there and all that sort of thing. It's nothing to do with their rooms or their accommodation. It's helpful. And, it can be anything from how to make a green smoothie to what to do in Brisbane if you've got 12 hours. I've seen one like that. And I think those sorts of infographics are more useful. And that's what we do now. Like the one we did one called 7 superpowers of a knockout infographic. And it was just how to make a great infographic. But it was fun. So I think if people think outside of that pie chart made pretty approach.
Because sometimes those infographics you think, I could never create, or you could create one of them, but you think, man, there's so much research and data in here. How am I ever going to find all that stuff?
Use what's in your head.
And you get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, when you did your LinkedIn one, it was from your book, it was from your own experience, it was from your head.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you'd done some research,
but it was repurposing another piece of content that we already had.
Yeah, and it's more useful than if that you did one that had thousands of stats about LinkedIn. I mean, I have put some stats on some of mine, but only in context to help people then do what the tips are. So definitely. I think people are now realizing. And the other thing is you don't have to do the really long ones. Like I love them, but even just a half-length one, just make it more snackable. And then they share well to Facebook and, and they embed quite nicely into a blog post.
I was actually quite stunned at how much information you can fit on an infographic. And when the sort of penny dropped that I can actually take a popular blog post or a popular template or something like that and just turn it into an infographic, then I realized, you sort of realize that, well, some people like downloading PDFs and saving them to their computer. Some people like reading stuff on a blog post, but you open yourself up to a whole new audience if you take that same content and put it in a visual format, and you're just getting basically more eyeballs and more people interacting with your content, which is a really valuable thing. And you don't need to go away and you don't have to treat it as a separate project. It's really just an extension of a project that you've already working on, already completed. So that was
it's a big aha moment. I think I always think of it as even like a trapdoor to more, like people don't, and then now we're in the habit of, if you see a great image, you'll click on it. Even if it's just on Facebook to get the description and the link, or if it's on Pinterest, people will click through, and it's always a great way to tease people through to more content. And it's almost like a promise that there's a more great content behind that image.
Yeah.
So, I think you can put a lot of the content on there, but you can also lead them through to a blog post, and that gets them back to your website, which is the cool part.
Yeah. Now, what I want to do is just ask a question that we've got planned for further in the interview, but I want to ask it now.
Yep.
What are some of your tips or pro tips on actually getting infographics made? Because yes, they look fancy. Yes, they're really effective, but do you need to pay an expensive designer $100 an hour to do one, or are there tools to make it yourself, or are there people to outsource it to? Like, what can you sort of teach us there?
Well, it's interesting because people laugh at me because we actually do create infographics, but we do sort of I won't say they're high end. They're more custom designed, and we have an illustrator, so that they're a really fun project where we work from like the whole storyboarding phase to the creation and then the promotion. But the funny part is that I love teaching people how to create their own as well. So, I love, there's only so much time we can work with businesses on creating the major projects and the, if they're doing like some, and usually if you get one designed, I would recommend, like you said before, picking out something that is really, is really going to resonate with your audience, or like a blog post that has been really popular, or a launch, or something where you want to invest that time, because they're not cheap to get made. Like the average infographic can range between, well, it seems like the going rate's between 2,000 and 10,000 at the moment. And I say 10,000 not to freak everyone out, but that's like the fully interactive. They're actually like movies within an image. It's quite full on.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen one of those yet.
Yeah, you can. Well, there's been, I think 10,000 is a bit ridiculous, but you can be a few grand to get. There's been some content that are they're kind of animated, or even they go as far as almost like a video. But just for say a 5,000 pixel by 735, I think is the width at the moment. Generally, at least $1 to $2,000 or more. Like that's sort of the market value, probably more than two. But I recommend that you can do a few things if you just want to dip your toe in without getting, doing a major one like that. They can be very effective, but you can use a tool called PictoChart, which is it's probably my favorite. I think there's also there's a couple of others. But PictoChart's a good one because you get a lot of great templates, and you can change colors and fonts and bring in your logo and do a nice header and a footer, and you can actually create something that does look fairly unique. I also recommend, this is a little tip, go somewhere like Fiverr and find someone that does half decent illustrations, or use your own designer. I'm also very supportive of designers, obviously, because we have one. Just find some way you can get cost-effective images made that then you can import into a tool like PictoChart and have some sort of custom images on a tool, so you're not looking like you're the same infographic as everybody else. That's a good way to go. You can even use something like Canva or PictoChart to do an infographic that's mainly not maybe so much designed up, but it might have a header or a footer, but it's actually just a sequence of images. Like if your business if you know how to do a procedure or some sort of activity that can be really helpful for someone that you can put into a series of image shots, you can just take photos of it. Then you can do something like that, like just a step sequence one, and you might then lead them through to a blog post where they're getting more information about how to do it, but the actual infographic stands alone. So those sorts of tools are great. And the other thing I'd recommend is consider doing, if you're also trying to reduce cost, like one thing we do is we'll do templated infographics or snackable graphics where we go, okay, well, we want to do a series of, top 5 tips about social media on different platforms, say, and we'll do a template or get it designed. We'll design it up, and then you might do 4 or 5 of them. You might make them different color, but the design investment is not huge once you've got the main design done up. So you do these templates, and then you're just filling in the tips on them or filling in some of the graphics. So the cost is brought down, and also it's smaller, so you can do the smaller ones to save you money. So they're probably my top tips for just sort of getting that sort of content out. You can either design it yourself using tools, template them so that you're at least just getting one done, but you can use it over a period of time on different blog posts. It might even be a takeaway infographic, top 5 such and such, but you can change the font of whatever blog post you're pulling it from. And then you're leading up to getting, one that's fully designed. I mean, we did one with Ian Cleary recently. I think it was called A Day in the Life of a Social Media Marketer. And it was really cool because we designed a character, and she was like, it was basically her day from the top to the bottom of what she did throughout the day, but all the tools that she was using, because he writes about social media tools. And it was funny because I love the whole promotion aspect. As we're designing the infographic, you know, what are we including? What's the message? What are people are learning out of it? And how do we lay that out so that it looks good design wise? And we work with the designer. Like, I love that kind of thing. And then the promotion side. But Ian is the ultimate he's just brilliant at blogger outreach and getting something shared. So between my promotion ideas and his, it just went crazy. And we had like all these social media tools on there, and of course all the social media tool companies were sharing it. So sometimes a little bit of ego stroking can be really handy if there's someone in your industry that you know you want to showcase and get to know a bit better. It can be really handy putting those on as well.
Very, very nifty advice there. Thanks, Donna. And what about infographic submission sites? Are they worthwhile going through that process of submitting them? Or is that, that is?
Yeah.
Yep, awesome.
Yeah, I would say, but look, you know, I always say there's a bit of a hierarchy of how you would do it. Like when you start out, obviously the first place it needs to be is on something you own, your website. It needs to be on your owned, you know, not on rented land. So don't just post it for the first time on a guest post or on a you know, on one of the social sites. Make sure it's on your website, it's embedded. You can use an embed code that then people can share. There's lots of plugins that they can use to just share it immediately on their site, so it links back to yours. But I also, once you've done that, then you start talking to other people, either that are in the, you know, like you would one way you can set up guest posts that's really useful with infographics. I know Ian's done this. I haven't done it because I haven't had time really, but you can offer to write a short intro for the infographic as part of the guest post, and then it makes it easier for the person sharing it. Actually, I have done it. I've done it for Entrepreneur, where you often do a little header intro. And the other thing you asked about, what was? I've just gone off track again.
Oh, that's all right. No,
just tell me. You asked about with outreach. What was the question?
Is entering into the infographic
so the infographic sites definitely do it after that. So sort of get it on your site, do blogger outreach, and then when sort of the initial spikes come down, then put it on. You know, it might be visually, or SlideShare is a great place to put infographics now.
Oh, good thinking.
Yeah, get it up there. Get yours up there. So if it catches their eye and it's put on page one, you know, I had one of my infographics shared by Michael Hyatt. That's how I ended up on his site, and it just said, you know, and to be honest, I haven't put them all on SlideShare yet. I've got them on visually, but I'm about to do a bunch on SlideShare. So there's a whole bunch. I think there's infographic. There's a whole bunch of sites you can go to, you know, and definitely eventually as your traffic starts to peter off a little bit, that's a good time to just give it another boost. So for sure do that.
Awesome. That's plenty of excellent advice there. Now let's just rewind now back to that previous part on the marketing experiments. What's something that hasn't gone well, and what would you choose to do differently if you had your time again? Yeah,
sure. I think what hasn't gone well is where I was caught a little bit in old school marketing and new school. Like I think I was sort of thinking that I still had to hustle a lot and you know, be guest posting everywhere. I think after you get a few up, you can start to think about like where is the best place for my time. And I think some of my posts, you know, I did some posts for people that didn't have huge audiences, and then they turned around and, you know, they might have had a magazine that was a physical magazine, and they turned around and said, oh no, we're not doing it anymore. Like they just changed, or it didn't have the audience I thought, or it just didn't feel good working with them. So start out and get on a few, but then just start thinking about where is my audience really and who are the people I want to work with. I think I tend, you know, I did what a lot of people do, and I just started to write for anyone that asked me because of the ego.
Yeah.
So you think, oh, that's nice they've asked me. Sure, I'll help you out. Start out doing that as much as you can, getting some traction, but then just really look after yourself and just think, where's my content best placed? And that applied to speaking, and it applied to clients, and it applied to everything, you know, like even, and the one mistake I made is partway through, I just kind of went off on a bit of a tangent. I was going to do, which I will still do, but we're doing it online. And I'm very passionate about the chiropractic community and, you know, health in general. And I had a trade display, and I can't believe I did this. Trade display at a conference, which was funny because I was actually also on the logistics team because I'm involved in that community, and I was helping out my friend who was speaking at the conference. I got her. She's a public speaker, quite a well-known public speaker in Australia, and I just thought partway through, I thought, you know what, the trade displays aren't the best way for me to meet everyone. I just went and I was there, but I just ended up going and just talking to people generally, and it's just such a big outlay of money. Like there's so many better ways that you can invest your money. So yes, my big failures was just hustling and being everything to everyone and not realizing that some of those old school marketing approaches they just don't work anymore. And I knew that, but I just got caught up in I'll go and join my friends at a trade display.
Yeah. So would you call that one of your ugly ones, the confessions of what was a Z-Set shocker? Yep.
Yeah. I remember just during the thing going, and I love talking to people but it's just a different mindset of people. I soon turned it around and realized that the best way for me to reach the chiropractors and to help them with marketing their message was that we did a webinar, and I helped the Chiropractic Assistants Association put together a webinar, and we're still probably looking at doing some more, but that's a better way because you can reach more of them at once. And but I did grow. We had a recruitment agency years ago, and we used to do trade displays and go to the universities and things like that, but we also were starting to be more social in a clunked together kind of email plus customer service plus website, initial kind of early version of a blog. So I've kind of had that transition from different types of marketing, and I just thought that was hilarious that I paid for a trade display when I knew I was already past knowing that it wasn't the best thing to do. But I was sitting there going, I think I just left it in the end. Like people were great, like I had good chats. It was all my friends, and I wasn't selling. I don't sell like that. I sell with great content. I don't sell saying I'm great, come and work with me.
Yeah, let the work speak for itself. And
it was a very good mistake to make. But fortunately, it just fortunately it was a bit of a contra deal. I was helping out the association as well. I didn't have to fork out a fortune, but they're so expensive. It's not a good. I remember Melanie Duncan talking about in an interview, Melanie and Devon Duncan, about and they're quite very successful online marketers in a very short space of time, but they were successful with their business first. And she said that their light bulb moment was when they realized that they didn't have to pay a fortune for trade displays to sell. I think they were selling, clothes and apparel for the what do you call it, the fraternities.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good realization if you can just not spend the money, then it saves you having to then get the return on that investment, which is tons and tons of sales.
Yeah, and I think Devon, she was saying that her husband worked out this online way. It was very rudimentary early website ads of some sort, Google ads or something, but it was just like immediate shift in sales versus hustling all over the country. Yeah,
and being everywhere in person as well.
Yeah.
Now, I guess that's a good segue. What would your advice be to somebody starting out from scratch in terms of their marketing online?
Yeah. Look, I would just start with just making sure you've got some house for your content, like it's whether that's a podcast like you've got or a web. I mean, it always has to come back to some sort of website. I think that you can't get past that, and I'm sure you'll agree.
Totally.
But get some way of sharing your message, whether it's a blog or a video show linked into your website or a podcast. One of those three modalities on a website that you own, and just start creating content. Like I had crickets when I first started to create content, but I had a few friends that were all learning too, so we just shared our own blog posts. And you can get into some great groups now on Facebook. Blogging communities where people, it's a bit forced, where people have to comment on a couple of other people's blogs, and you might cop one that's really, when it's your turn, it might be one that you don't really want to read, but it just gets comments going, and it's like the first dance. Someone has to get up on the dance floor. So just getting that experience of having people read your blog and comment on it other than your family or friends, I think is a great place to start. And then just and then pick one or two platforms and start sharing to those, and then pick platforms that you're comfortable with, your audience is comfortable with, and just post really post the kind of content that people are already posting on that platform. So really native content. So on Facebook, don't just post your products and services, post what people are there for, which is to be entertained, to have a bit of a laugh, to connect with their family and friends and see what people are doing behind the scenes. In a nutshell, I hope that makes sense. Like and then just be consistent with posting content somewhere, but preferably on a blog or something like that. And then start looking at some of the other things we've talked about, which is the outreach and some of the visual content. But you have to start somewhere. I had like I think I was saying to you, might have been a previous interview when Nikki Parkinson from Styling You just said to me, Donna, just start writing. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Just start putting some content out, put your thoughts onto some sort of paper or video or something and go from there.
And I guess the good news is good/bad news. Well, it's good because as you're starting out, you don't have much confidence that people are interested in what you're saying, but no one's really watching or listening when you're doing that anyway. So if you fall
you
over,
pick which bucket you want to stand in.
and make a mistake, it doesn't matter because no one's going to see that mistake anyway. And then when you do get more traction, you can look back at your early posts and laugh at how bad they were.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that's you think they're so great too at the time, or you think, oh my God. Yeah.
It just shows how much you improve just by doing stuff regularly. And that advice from Nikki, just to get started and get going and keep improving. It's just so true because otherwise if you're trying to write the perfect post and have, get onto Entrepreneur for your very first post, you're just going to intimidate yourself out of even starting, and that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, and look, I think and get to know the people that you're trying to reach out to. Like I've accepted interviews with people. Like I'm I do interviews with people that aren't massive influencers because sometimes they'll approach me in the right way, and I think, well, that's where I was, not that long ago, and I really value when they do a little bit of research and they use my name and they, they're really honest about where they're at and that they'd love to interview me or whatever else. So I've had, I think you're right. Like just start producing content and you can practice, in a sense. And that's what Nikki said. You need to find your voice. You can't find it initially. I didn't find my voice straight away. I wasn't writing about what I'm writing about now. It's completely different content. It was all over the place. I think I started Socially Sorted as some sort of way of sort of organizing yourself and being efficient on social media versus the actual, the content. So, yeah.
And then the visual side of it,
you can pivot later. Yeah, you don't have to stay talking about productivity. If your heart ends up being in health, you can pivot a blog, and your readers you might lose some, but they're often very forgiving, especially if it's not a massive pivot.
Yeah. And I think if it's like what you said about Darren Rouse's advice, find something that brings you energy and then fan the fire, then you're going to enjoy it more. You're going to write better stuff and your readers are going to enjoy it more. So there's no point. If you feel like it's a grind, it probably is a grind, and you probably gravitate towards. You might prefer talking than writing, so start a podcast, or you might prefer just talking into your computer and videotaping it, and so you can have a video blog or a YouTube channel. But you would definitely still house it on your blog. But just do what you like that brings you energy, not that is like a chore. Otherwise, you just feel guilty every time you don't do it, and the quality won't be there. But and
then you can tell, and like if you're writing a post that's not working, just leave it in drafts and start another one.
That's right. I got plenty in drafts.
And often you'll come back to it. Yeah. And then you'll come back to it and you'll have more ideas to add to it. And I think, and just find the right time of day that helps you to write, that's good advice.
Yeah, cool. Now, I'm gonna move through the deep dive into one specific area because we've covered a lot of visual stuff and infographics. Yep. Is that all right with you? Or was was there any more tips you just wanted to give on creating infographics or creating really good visual content that you haven't sort of mentioned in the previous parts?
Yeah, just I don't think I mentioned it. I did another interview before you, so I hope I'm not repeating myself. But I just with visual content, there's a couple of things. One is be really consistent with your visuals as well as your blog posts. So put one great image on every page of your website, because 85% of content shared to Pinterest in particular is by users, not by brands. So they're coming to websites and going, oh, that's cool, and sharing it, or I want to buy that. So if you've got that visual content there, then they can do it. If you don't, then they can't. So it's a really easy thing that anyone can do. even if you haven't got a Pinterest strategy, just make sure you've got some good quality images on your website, at least 200 wide and some preferably portrait size, but it doesn't have to be. And the other thing is to batch images. So if you're producing original visuals, not just like with infographics, but even just embedding some images in your blog posts that can be shared. So if you interview someone, put a quote image in from them, or just a great image showcasing whatever your post is about, have those in your website. But if you're creating original content, do it in batches. So if you're doing some tip images or some how-to images or just some header images for your blog posts, or you're doing some how-to or quote, whatever it is, use Canva or PicMonkey or WordSwag or one of those tools to just sit down and do 10 at a time versus 5 at a time. Or get your like we said about before about templating, even just with some of those smaller images, if you're going to use them for Facebook or whatever, or a series of images, get your designer to do a template, and then you can add over the text overlay or whatever. So some of that batching and using templates can be really, really effective. And if you're consistent and post an image every day to social media on certain sites, other people are waking up every day going, what am I going to post today? Because they're not as organized as you. And they have a hit list, because we all have a hit list of websites and Facebook pages that we go to when we can't think of anything else to post, and we share their stuff. So if you can be the person that they're coming to, then you're already a step ahead of everybody else.
Nice. Really good advice. Now, you've mentioned quite a few mentors and colleagues and people that you've learnt from in your marketing journey, Donna. Yep. Who stands out, either from either books or blogs or presentations or courses, that have been particularly influential to you, that either you want to reiterate or that you haven't, that you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Listen, as far as bloggers that I've followed since the start, like I always followed Social Media Examiner and Michael Hyatt. Michael Hyatt mainly because I discovered him on Twitter, and he made sense when I couldn't work out what Twitter was. And he's just he writes about publishing and marketing and social media and productivity and leadership, and it's a great blog. And just his blog style is really great to mirror if you're starting out, like really simple, lots of dot points. And Social Media Examiner was always fantastic for me. I've followed them since the start. And then just as far as blogging itself, Derek Halpin's really great to follow. He's got really practical tips for not only blogging, but psychology of sales and marketing and just marketing online. He's quite brash and funny, but yeah, he's got a unique style, but I really like him. He's very, very, no fluff. It's very straightforward. David Siteman Garland also, again, is a really good teacher. He's kind of fun and, a bit of a lad, but he's a really good teacher, and he has really great lessons, and he's lots of great videos. He used to run a podcast, as you know, Adam, but he's now more shifting to online training, but he still does a lot of teaching videos. And Amy Porterfield, of course, she's a friend of mine now, but I always still, I laugh and say to her, I still watch her webinars because there's always something new and useful, and she's a really great teacher as well. So she's great to follow. And I think you mentioned books as well. Like I really love the book Rework. Have you read that?
Yeah, from the 37 Signals guys. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they developed Basecamp, but it's about sort of that minimum effective dose of what you really need to do to be, to build a platform or to build a product or a business or anything, and how we really have had it all wrong with, having long drawn out meetings or working in offices and all those sorts of things. Because, and that's can be quite a shift in mentality for people to read that book. But it's also great because it's only the chapters are 2 pages long. So you can zip through it on a flight or just read a quick chapter. And look, the other one that I've been reading lately that I love is Thrive by Arianna Huffington, and from the Huffington Post. And it's just about some of that work-life balance and getting enough sleep and not, working a million hours a week, and how you can shift things around to just be more efficient. So I really love that book too. But they're probably the main people that business-wise that I've learned from. Just trying to think what else.
That's a really thorough list. There are a lot of people I have. Most of them I've heard of, and I agree that they're fantastic people to be learning from. I subscribe to most of their emails and watch their webinars and videos.
Yeah, and they're all really practical, and they give their best content straight up. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk is another one. I mean, all of his books have been fantastic, but especially I recommend people, if they're looking to use more social media, like read Jab, 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 Right Hook, because it's about providing lots of value, lots of great content, and then, well, you don't even need to ask for the sale. Usually it just happens, but you know, you can lead people into that. And he's got some great ideas in that book and examples of things that are of businesses not doing it well too, as far as native content and how to really step back and look at how a platform is used, and then providing your content, your visual content, so that it's sort of seamless within that platform and not interrupting people while they're being entertained. So that's a great book for people to read.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And Donna, any closing thoughts or final pieces of advice that you'd like to share?
Sure. I just, you know, I mean, obviously Adam and I both, we would agree that blogging is pretty effective. So, you know, I even though I'm big on visual content, I think unless you get your house set up well, don't worry about any of that other stuff until you start looking at creating content on your own platform. So definitely blogging for businesses, definitely try it out. Like we started blogging with a business last week. It's a midwifery business, or last week, about 3 weeks ago. Admittedly, they've written some great blog posts just answering questions that women want to know about home birth and birthing in hospitals and that. And their traffic was thousands of times higher after blogging. It's settled down now to about 1,000% higher than it was. But it's just phenomenal to watch when you're creating content from your website, how powerful it can be. And we've also embedded images into their blog posts, and that's getting shared as well. So, yeah, and if people want to find me, they can come. The best place to get free content from me, because I've been harping on about free content, is my blog, sociallysorted.com.au, and also have a program for people to learn how to create visual content, and it's called createtrafficdrivingimages.com, but I'll give Adam the link. We run webinars from time to time as well. So that's the best place to find me. Thank you.
And I look forward to sharing that webinar with our audience at some point. I'll certainly be very keen to attend when they kick off. There's so much that I've learned from you already from your free content, and I'm very excited to see what's in store in the course as well. So, Donna, thank you.
And I'll look forward to seeing more of your infographics.
Yes, there's more on their way. You've given me that little kick that I needed to get the rest out.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Congrats on winning the best blog for 2014, the best business blog for 2014, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thanks, Adam. Bye.
Cheers. And there we have a fantastic interview with Donna Moritz. I certainly really enjoyed interviewing her, and as you'll see, like, this visual content marketing stuff really does work. We spoke at length about our LinkedIn infographic, and we're certainly going through all of our templates at the moment and rolling out infographic versions of them, because they just really do attract that many shares and backlinks that it's well worth doing. We're also going to be inviting people who listen to the podcast and who subscribe to our Blue Wire news the opportunity to go through Donna's free video training. So we'll put notes to that in the show notes of the podcast. There's 3 free videos that Donna has put together that teaches us exactly what we need to do to create these types of images. So this show was brought to you by Web Marketing That Works, our book, and specifically the 33 free marketing templates that go with it. So if you'd like to get your hands on those, head to bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Our intent with these podcasts is to always deliver actionable advice, so your feedback and questions are welcome. So please let us know via email. My email is adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au, or tweet me. I'm at Franklin_Adam. And if you enjoyed the show, we would certainly love it if you left us an honest review on iTunes, and we'll give a shout out to the people who leave us 5-star reviews. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.